Okay, wind them up now. Okay, everybody, wind it up now. Let's go. Okay, let's sit down now. Let's get the show on the road, okay? Too enthusiastic. Let's get the show on the road, come on. Well done. There you go. Brilliant. Now, your job for the rest of the day is to, both of you who just met, to introduce somebody else that neither of you know to somebody else. Something like that. Something along those lines. So that we can get you all networked up and you all know what you're doing, what you're involved in, what you're working on, and things start happening in a much faster way, which is what we love to do in tech. So, Mike Butcher from TechFugees, part of the team who came up with this wonderful idea. Frankly, I think it's a great idea, but I'm sorry, I just do. And I just thought very, very briefly, quick update on what's basically happened. So 2 months ago, just over 2 months ago, I came up with the idea, and then lots of my friends joined, and then we organised a conference in about 9 days. We had a conference here, upstairs in a bigger area, unfortunately, I must say, and then we had a hackathon, and then we got a whole bunch of media press from that wonderful world of media. And what was wonderful about that was that we were telling a story, which was a positive story, about the refugee crisis, which we were saying, look, we can bring solutions to this. We're not necessarily going to come up with all the solutions, it's not a magic bullet, but we can have a go. And that has been a wonderful thing, and I think perhaps usefully we leverage of social media and lots of media channels basically really highlighted the issue, and lots of other people decided that was a good idea as well. So from the Facebook group, we started with about 50 people in the first couple of days, and then about 100, and then 300, and then 500, and now to 2,000. So clearly everyone else thought this wasn't a bad idea either. And since then we've now connected with a number of other organisations out there doing cool things like Peace Geeks, Net Hope, Engineers Without Borders, who are all wonderful organisations as well, all doing fantastic things in this kind of a space. But what I think we've come up with TechFugees is a really, really useful convening power to bring people together, smash heads together from the tech world and from the NGO world and from the refugee world, charity world, to talk about these subjects. So that's basically the setup. The update since we started the whole thing, crazy thing, is that lots of other people have taken the idea and run with it. And it's become a sort of a meme, which is fantastic, and exactly what I and our little team wanted to happen. So as a result of TechFugees happening in London and all the press and the interest in the whole concept, we ended up with people who wanted to do hackathons and events in their own countries. So the next one after that was Oslo. And Oslo, I was approached by a student organisation and a co-working space who all basically set up within the space of 5 minutes a TechFugees hackathon in Oslo. And out of that was largely more like an idea-a-thon, which was then taken, some of those ideas were then taken up by engineering students at the local university, and some of those ideas are going forward. And it was, amazing. They did it over 24 hours. Everyone stayed up late, 48-hour hackathon, crazy stuff. We've also, there's also been an ongoing hackathon in Warsaw, which has been going on literally for the last week, and they're working on things as well. One of the bigger themes to come out of this whole idea has been, firstly, but initially we felt like there must be a way of bringing technology solutions to the immediate crisis of, getting people clothed and fed and getting them Wi-Fi access and getting them to meet with, getting them resources in terms of getting them into the NGO system or something like that. Finding their location, helping them get in touch with loved ones, etc. But the other thing that has become a very, very big thing, and I think which isn't going to go away anytime soon, and I think which is very much what TechFugees is going to be going about going forward, is integration in society, legitimate asylum seeking, being integrated in society, jobs, skills, education, children, all of these things. Super. There's some seats over here. Come on in. Come on, don't worry. Don't be shy, we're all friends here. And and that was very much one of the things that came out of Oslo. As I said, Warsaw is ongoing, and there's really reporting in. We've also now had a TechFugees hackathon in Italy, which is obviously perfect for, Italy has been bearing the brunt of a lot of this crisis. We've managed to connect with wonderful people like Paula, who's been working in Greece, and we'll be hearing from her later about some of the projects she's working on, Startup Boat. In Venice, they had a hackathon in Venice. Fantastic. And in Australia, they've just had a hackathon for TechFugees, and managed to get enormous amounts of media. Come on in. Come down here. There's loads of seats at this end. No problem. And so in Australia, they've had a TechFugees event over a weekend, and in Australia, that is a big issue, huge hot political potato, as it were, and one of the great things about the TechFugees concept, which people have just run with, is that it has given people an excuse to talk about a positive aspect to this whole thing. There's some seats down over here. Come around. Lots of seats over here. The positive aspect. In a way, TechFugees is a wonderful idea where you can just simply say, listen, we're going to talk about a concept which is positive to do with this subject, okay? And I'm getting 2 minutes left, sorry. I'm overrunning. A quick update on... So we raised some money. We raised £5,000, and transparently, we're going to tell you that we're going to use part of that to put in Wi-Fi into the jungle, which is the refugee Calais camp. And part of it, we have decided that we're going to use it to fund ongoing TechFugees projects and events in the next year. Part of the reason we're going to have to do that is because of the political situation now in the UK. It means that we are unable to raise nearly as much sponsorship as we were the first time round. It's tough now for sponsors to get involved in this subject because of the Paris attacks and the erroneous, I might say, association with terrorism and refugees, and completely wrong. It's like saying everyone in America is a terrorist. Hello, right? And it's an absolute bullshit situation. But come on in. There's some seats up here, just around in the corner here. And so transparently, that's what we're going to do. So if anyone wants to ask me more detail about that, just go ahead. We have used part of the money. We're going to use part of the money and also our convening power and basically our sort of media profile, I guess, to put Wi-Fi into Calais, into the jungle. And we've had a note. So Sadaf, who is running a whole bunch of projects in Calais, would have been here to tell you briefly about that. But just as an update on that, They're going to put 4 hotspots into the jungle. There'll be one in the school, one in the ashram kitchen, one in the information centre, and one in something called the Miracle Street Trailer, which is some lovely name. And that's going to be LTE, and they're going to limit BitTorrent and all of that stuff. Can you imagine, right? So, the whole sort of point of it is to make it easy to use, flexible, lots of speed, coverage, value for money, reliability, and the ultimate aim is to cover all 8,000 people. Which, I mean, this is the numbers are ridiculous, aren't they? 8,000 people in this camp, in this informal camp, and working with lots of local NGOs. So we've got a wonderful project going on there. And
what about the care?
Sorry?
What about the care? The other camp, more than 2,000 people. Are you doing the same there?
We're working just in that camp at the moment with local partners. The point about TechFugees is we're not going to become an organisation. We're just going to basically help these people get their message out and convene, right? So TechFugees isn't going to be on the ground, but we want to convene and help people to get in touch with those people to provide that kind of Wi-Fi, those kinds of services. Right, so I'm running over time. We've got no photographer today because we can't afford one, so everyone take loads of photographs with your phones, tag them up with TechFugees, and we will blatantly steal them so that we can aggregate them and tell everybody we had a conference. So it actually happened. No photographs, didn't happen. The speeches are being videoed for YouTube and archived, so you can watch them later. Tag everything for TechFugees, and we'll be doing some more introductions and stuff later. So now, without further ado, we're now going to have Vodafone Foundation Instant Network. Ocean Walton is going to talk about their project, which is super cool, and he's going to explain it now. Ocean, right. Come on. Are you mic'd up?
Yeah, I am.
Fantastic. Off you go. Thank you.
Hello. Good morning. Can you hear me? Yep. Hi. Good morning, everyone. So, on the topic of technology, I had a few notes on my phone, and just discovered that half of them aren't there, so I'm just going to improvise. But basically, so my name is Ocean Walton. I work for Vodafone Foundation. I manage a program called Instant Network, which started about 4 years ago, when Vodafone Foundation shifted from just giving cash to NGOs and our partners to set up a program where we're combining our technology, our employees and expertise, and our funding. So basically, working along partners to using our technology. We all know how mobile technology can be important in humanitarian aid, and that's where we're coming from. So I used to work for an NGO called Télécoms Sans Frontières, which is a relatively small NGO based in France, specialized in telecoms. They actually started with refugees about 15 years ago in the Balkans, and at the time they were providing general humanitarian aid. And every time they were a group of volunteers, every time they showed up in the field, people would ask them, give them a little piece of paper and said, when you go home, please call this number, tell my family I'm alive, etc. And that was way before mobile phones were available. And so they were using these big satellite phones. I'm sure many techies in the room have seen those Inmarsat big phones. So they bought one phone, went back, again with blankets, food, etc. And there was huge queues for people who wanted to make that call. So I worked for TSF for 7 years, joined Vodafone Foundation about 4 years ago. What we do is basically provide communications in disasters. So we've got a kit, the program started with a kit called Instant Network, which is a mobile network in a box, well, in 3 boxes, sorry, that we deploy in disasters. So we started deploying in disasters where mobile networks are down to provide free communications. So we have volunteers around the world. We've got 70 today in 21 countries, deploying in emergencies with NGOs such as TSF, and also we work with UNHCR in refugee camps. The program then developed into supporting education in refugee camps. And basically, I'm not going to talk too much about go through loads of slides, etc. I'm just going to show you 2 kits that we developed within the foundation, working with partners. The first one is Instant Classroom, which we launched in February and that we've deployed in schools in Africa. So I'm sorry for those sitting at the back, feel free to stand up if you want. Basically at the break, I'll also be here if you want to see a closer look at the kit, I can show you.
Do you want to, why don't we put it on this table? Yeah?
Yeah, I'm going to need some help because it's 52 kilos.
I'm going to help. I'm going to help. Oh, right.
Okay. So it's on wheels, so we need to normally carry it around. But basically, this kit, the issues that we had in the field, basically what are internet network schools? They're schools with power, internet, tablets, projectors, and IT equipment. Basically, we're trying to set up a classroom, a digital classroom, in schools in refugee camps. The average stay of a child in a refugee camp is over 20 years, I think, today. They're totally unconnected with the outside world. So providing internet for teachers to be able to go and get the right information, instead of having to draw on a board to just display a picture, simple concepts, difficult concepts in biology, science, etc. You can just show a short video and kids will get it, whereas if you have to draw, especially if I have to draw, it's not going to be good. So there are all sorts of advantages of having technology in the classroom, particularly in refugee camps, which are totally isolated from the outside world. So the kit had 2 purposes. One, we had huge logistic challenges in getting all the equipment, so the different pieces, the laptops, the tablets, the projector, etc., to the field. The second challenge was when we installed it in one school, the school next door wanted the same. And there are about 40 schools in Dadaab, a refugee camp, for example, at the border with Somalia and Kenya. And we only had the funding and the resources to deploy 13. So what we said is, we're going to, I don't like the expression because I love birds, but killing birds with 1 stone, 2 birds with 1 stone. Basically, getting it all in a kit that you can wheel enables you to first kind of tackle your issue of logistics and getting everything at the same time. And then you can also wheel the kit into a school where there isn't anything. So where we are present, we provide power, connectivity, etc. This kit has 25 tablets, a laptop, a 3G modem, so for internet. It has a projector and speaker, and the tablets are here. And you can't see the inside of the box, but you've got 25 tablets like this, okay? And you've got batteries in the box. So basically, it's a self-sufficient digital classroom. So that's the first thing. We've got about 25,000 students and 500 teachers benefiting from the program. And again, as you can see, the teachers are key in the program. We're not thinking that you're going to replace teachers with tablets and a piece of technology. So teachers are key in the program. The second one is instant charge. And that's coming back to, I think that's going to be a lot of interest for the people in the room because it's deployed in Greece at the moment. Basically, we developed this solution in 3 weeks. It's called instant charge. So basically, one of the biggest needs for refugees arriving in Greece and going across Europe is power. So the networks are pretty good, particularly in Greece, but pretty much all along the route. And people will buy local SIMs, etc. What they have limited access to is power. So there have been charging stations that have been developed and installed, but they're generally plugs, and it's not really safe for outdoor usage, etc. So what we tried to develop was a solution like this, where you can charge you can charge 25 devices. So the cables come out, okay, and you've got 20 cables for iPhone, new iPhone, old iPhone, etc. And the advantage of this is that you can screw it to a table, so no one can take it away with them, and that it's also for outdoor use, meaning when you're looking at electricity and using electricity, it's really key that you look at safety as well. So we've deployed 6 of these solutions so far, and we have another 6 on the way working with UNHCR. You can see in the picture, so that's the setup. You can see our nice tables made of pallets. And so I was there about a week ago for 2 weeks deploying these solutions. And you can see each box has 3 of these boxes. So 1, 2, and 3. And along that, we provide free Wi-Fi as well for people to be able to use WhatsApp, etc. I'd say the big difference between this emergency and emergencies in Africa, for example, is that a lot of refugees have smartphones. So that means that they can access internet, etc. Also, the networks in Europe are much faster, much more developed than in many places in Africa where the refugee camps are. So that means that power, and combining power and internet, is really, really key. So we're hoping to use these not only in refugee camps in Greece, but potentially in other countries, in Macedonia, etc. And also in disasters, when there's a typhoon, or etc., where we deploy emergencies, where we provide Wi-Fi and mobile coverage, we'll provide these charging stations at the same time. So I think I'm good for time. That's pretty much it. I mean, I'll have the kids here if you want to have a closer look. Don't want to bore you too long with any. But thanks a lot to Mike and
we've got 2 minutes for questions. There's a question over there. Do you just want to shout it out?
Hi, I'm just wondering, Shelley, I'm wondering if your foundation, how it helps fund initiatives, and can you talk a little bit about
How do you fund initiatives?
So there's a process as any foundation where you present a proposal, you go through there's a board of trustees that reviews that. We have ongoing partners such as UNHCR, TSF, and other organizations in other different sectors. I'm just talking about emergency response and education, but we also work in health, in other initiatives around use of data in downtime, etc. But we receive, I don't know, hundreds of applications every year. These are the board of trustees. Again, as I was saying, the focus is really around a program called Mobile for Good. So its network is part of Mobile for Good. So we're really trying to focus on the use of technology in programs. But if I have one thing to say around the use of technology, when you think of innovation, people often think of technology. And actually, I would say that the technology is the easy bit, right? We developed this within 3 weeks. This was pretty straightforward, kind of, but it's not about the technology. The problem is not the technology. I work with techies all the time, and they get things done, right? And that's the great thing about working with techies is that they really get their hands in it. The challenge is actually applying those technologies and changing the way that people work in the field. Now, how do you measure the success of a technology? Is you see when we installed it, picture above, picture down below, that's a success. It's being used. If the technology is not being used, it means there isn't a need, and then it's not filling a gap. So, sorry, that's a bit longer than your question.
So do you think that the biggest issue is deployment?
I think it's, first of all, does it meet a need? So what are the needs and essential people who are in the field, who are facing the challenges, looking at the existing challenges and how technology fits and addresses the issue. Because if you're focusing on potentially new things that could in the future help, that's great, but the guys in the field are actually focusing on the immediate needs. So the immediate need, for example, when we visited, was charging. And we were looking at the solutions that were already available, and we were trying to address the gaps that weren't there, meaning outdoor, safe solution, portable, you can put it in a box, it's wheelable, you can move it from one place to another easily. So I think really listening to the need in the field and looking at how it can be applied quickly rather than looking at 10 years ahead. I mean, it's great to look 10 years ahead, and we all know this. That's part of the technology process, but innovating is not just about bringing in new technologies, it's actually finding innovative ways of addressing a problem using technology.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Can I help you with this? I think somebody stole your seat just now, so we can move you around. Okay. Oh God. Takes away different. Right. Right. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, one of the things we absolutely wanted to focus on was keeping TechFugees and all of your efforts aligned with people who are close to the issues on the ground. So therefore, we're now going to hear a presentation of the main challenges and how innovations by UNHCR. So Katie Drew, now you're Katie?
I'm Rebecca.
You're Rebecca. So Rebecca Moreno is part of the team behind UNHCR's Innovation Lab. And now we're going to hear from you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much, TechFugees, for organizing the conference. I'm Rebecca Moreno. I'm the manager of the Link Lab, one of the innovation labs at UNHCR Innovation. And I have my colleagues here, John Warnes and Katie Drew, that are going to explain a bit more focus and challenge of the European refugee crisis. But I wanted to give you an overview of UNHCR, how we work, our approach, and then funnel into the European refugee crisis. So as we understand in UNHCR and as a lot of our partners, especially for example as we spoke in Boston Foundation right now, one of our partners, innovation is a recognized need in the humanitarian sector. And because we cannot do the things that we're doing sometimes in the past that haven't, like they don't have worked, and now we discover some ways, different ways and different means of approaching different challenges that are changing through the time. For this reason, innovation is one of the key topics at the World Humanitarian Summit that is going to be held in Turkey in May 2016. And this is a huge step for the humanitarian sector that usually sees the issues as separate, like, water here, shelter here, and there's different topics that they see, and it's not across. So innovation is kind of like a multidisciplinary topic that they're now taking into the higher multilateral level, which is good. We believe at UNHCR Innovation that there must be a shift of paradigms. And in this case, because we are not used to work so much with the private sector or organization like yours, meaning we not at UNHCR, but like in general, the humanitarian sector. The humanitarian sector has not fully embraced the way, the fast pace that we work. We work a lot with processes, monitoring, evaluation, the project cycles, and in the private sector, especially in the tech community, and I'm going to put my hat on techie part, we don't see it like that. We go and test and prototype and then come back, ask for feedback, and redesign the things. So we need to change this paradigm and bring them together to work on partnerships, especially on research of new solutions, on project development, and also on funding, because this is something that it's also very important for the sustainability of projects. And don't get me wrong, it's not that we are the new kids on the block. Actually, we sit on the basement, like really, really right next to the restroom in the UNHCR building. And it's just that they have already been innovating inside their house, but the innovation was all over the place. Like, they were in cubicles, they were on the field, and there was nothing that is structured or incentivized as staff and people working with refugees, with forcibly displaced people, stateless people, returnees, internally displaced people, and to foster, to capture, meaning document these practices that were being applied and reward innovation among staff that they were doing that. So this is why 3 years ago, our leads created the unit, kind of like a startup within UNHCR Innovation. That's how are we known. And well, we provide to the staff these guidelines. We provide them with a structure, with models for experimentation. We put them together in contact with the tech community, with other partners, with other people working, because we don't like to reinvent the wheel. We know that some of the solutions are already out there, but we need to connect them and specifically adapt them to refugee contexts, because there are different cultural contexts, or they come from all different places. And this is why, and this is kind of our logo, we work for and with refugees. What we do is we listen to the communities, we include their feedback, we redesign, we go back, and then we do it again. And we fail sometimes, and many times we have, but it's something that we try to avoid, because, you know, like, in contrary to other sectors that failure is actually recognized and awarded, we cannot fail in the humanitarian sectors, because we are playing with people's lives, right? So we try to be very careful, and we test, and we immediately redesign in order to avoid failure, but we fail, and we have in the past, and we recognize that, and we learn from that, and we include and improve our projects that we're working on. And to do that, we have human-centered design approach. We draw from experiences from the academia, design thinking, and from the private sector, prototype testing, and we always focus on them, and we bring that approach to our work. The problem that we're trying to solve every day in our office and in every project that we have is, how can we provide solutions that cater to the well-being and dignity of the forcibly displaced? And it's not only about the 19.5 million refugees that are out there, it's about also the 38.2 internally displaced people that don't have the opportunity to leave their places, their home. It's also about the 1.8 million asylum seekers that they are applying to finish their journey and still integrate to our community. It's about them, and we always think about them. And we think, and the way we work at UNHCR Innovation is through innovation labs. So we have the people in charge here of the emergency lab, which is the lab that is in charge of communication with communities and specifically working with emergencies, energy, access to affordable energy, education, and the learning, and link lab data and connectivity. And there's some examples of projects that we have done, like, you know, the expertise from the private sector, from non-profits, from tech communities like yours. Little Lab, access to affordable energy, is just working with like an NGO that already designed a circuit, a bottle of water, and actually a plastic bottle, and just the circuit just to bring light to some of the camps. Ideas box, also Vodafone Foundation, culture, education in a box. They're mobile. Help UNHCR working with urban refugees to bring access to information and protection in Costa Rica. With like simple WordPress, that's how it started, in a crowdsourcing effort that we did with other communities. Better Shelter, that I think is the most kind of known project. It was like a partnership with a company that designs furniture, and basically it's being applied in a lot of the camps that we have seen. And for us, it's important for you to remind them, before I give the word to my colleagues, that we are working with them, and we might not have the opportunity right now when you're designing in your workshops, to talk to them or to obtain direct feedback, but always keep them in mind that they have different contexts, and especially because some of your solutions can be applied to other people that actually don't have the opportunity to leave home and are internally displaced, not only about refugees in Europe, but also think about other continents. So now I'm going to hand the word for Katie Drew and John Warnes to explain a bit on the European context, but always keep in mind that your solution can be applied to other contexts. Thank you.
Yeah, I might need to.
Yeah.
Sorry, only.
You have.
Hi everyone, I'm Katie from UNHCR Innovation, and this is my colleague John, and we're the Emergency Lab. We might look a little bit bleary-eyed because we just arrived in from Macedonia late last night, so excuse me if I trip over my words or don't make sense, please ask questions. Thanks everyone for coming today. So John and I are going to talk about some of the specific challenges that we identified from the European migrant crisis in terms of how we can best cater to the dignity and well-being of the people on the move there. I was asking a few of my UNHCR colleagues in the field, what's different about this crisis? What's different? What makes this crisis specifically challenging? And there are a number of issues that they pointed out, and that when I spoke to our partner staff, so we work with other INGOs in the field and with refugees themselves, they said there were really key things that make this context specifically challenging. And one is the fact that people are moving through the services, they're moving past very, very quickly. We're in Macedonia, and some people only spend 5 hours in Macedonia. So how can we cater to their dignity and to their well-being when they're moving through so quickly? It really does feel like an airport terminal. You know, people are coming, they're arriving, they need to get food, water, and they need to move on. And that's really what's driving them. And so they're concentrating on getting there. So normally people arrive in a camp, for example, if we're working in a sort of camp setting with UNHCR, they arrive and then they want to know how they access services. But that's slightly different in this context because they arrive and they want to know how do we leave here, which is very, very challenging and very, very different for us. And the context changes every day. So one day there might be a border that's open, one day they might have to have a different form of documentation to get through. And that rapidly changing context means that they need to be up to speed with what is the latest information. What is the latest information that I need in order to be able to achieve my objective? And their objective is to get going again, to keep moving on. And the weather conditions, I mean, today one of my friends said, oh, it's really cold today. And I was like, it's 12 degrees here. John and I were standing out in like coats, jumpers, woolly hats, gloves, blankets, and we were freezing, and we'd slept in a warm bed and had a hot meal the night before. And these people were walking in the middle of the night through mud, they're hungry, they're tired, and they look visibly freezing. And so visibly cold people, how do we make sure that we can really cater to them? How do we make sure that we can keep them warm, we can keep them safe, whilst they're moving on as well? So that's one of the key challenges. And so, as you can see, this is a photograph from one of the waiting areas, and there's all types of people passing through. So there are people in wheelchairs, and the route is really muddy. I've probably got sort of Serbian mud all over my boots. So sometimes between no man's land, it's not very easy to get through, it's not very easy to access. There are some people who can easily transit through these places, and there are some people who are maybe at risk of being left behind in a certain sense. So we need to really make sure that we cater to everyone. It's not a homogenous group of refugees. There are really some people in that group who have very specific needs. And how can we support their dignity and protection? How can we make sure that they don't feel like they're herded through this? How do we make sure that they feel like they are individuals, that they have agency and they have choice? Because that's very, very important for us at UNHCR, that these are treated, that people are treated as people. And so this is why we wanted to really bring our idea back to this human-centric design. So this is a section of the journey. As you can see, we're having to cater to a plethora of different languages, different people coming through. It's not as simple as well as saying, where are you from? I'm from Syria, or I'm from Afghanistan, and therefore you speak one language. There are swathes of different languages that we all have to cater to. Signage as well, obviously that only really caters to people who can read and write. And these are people fleeing from war-torn countries. They might not have had access to education, especially not for the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So this is a map as well, and as you can see, it's quite challenging to think about how do we provide the right information in a constantly changing context. I'm going to hand over to John now because we identified 2 key challenges that we'd like you to think about. So over to John.
Okay, and this sort of reflects on what Katie was saying about it being a bit like an airport terminal. So we were in Macedonia, one of the sites in Gevgelija, and looking at really what the challenges were, not only for refugees, but also our field staff who are actually on the ground trying to help them. They're constantly being asked questions, even something simple as what time is it? There's a time difference between Greece and Macedonia. It's not always clear, and if people have to meet people at a certain time, that's not immediately clear. So the problem is, as Katie was just mentioning again, languages. We have some interpreters in the field, but people ask questions and they may not necessarily speak language. Obviously, a lot of the local staff are Macedonian native speakers and speak English. There are many who speak English, mainly Syrians, but a lot who don't. And this takes a lot of time because then you have to find an interpreter, and any staff time used for this is quite challenging and a drain on what other things that could be done, resources provided, etc. So we saw this as a key need. How are UNHCR staff able to provide better information to refugees, especially in an environment where the information is changing very quickly? And one of the ideas that we had, which I'd like to, and these two challenges we'd sort of open up to you guys to sort of hear your thoughts and provide feedback to us, and also see whether there's any opportunity or whether this is feasible, was to actually provide a sort of, let's say, a tablet or something to UNHCR staff where actually they have translated material and translated audio on the tablet so that they could gauge who's asking what question and essentially play some of this back to them, reducing the need to go to interpreters and also being able to capture data on what are people asking. So let's say if we do see a lot of people asking for the time, maybe we need to install more clocks. It's something quite simple, but we need to be able to analyze that data as well as simply providing these multilingual sort of reactions to them. So, can you... And the second challenge, so an airport terminal again. What do we see when we come into airport terminals, train stations? Massive signs. And in an environment where you're having a site that's being perpetually changed and altered, where the military and the national government also have a say on what kind of things are allowed and not allowed, and we have to work in close cooperation with them. And where information is changing all the time, static signs may not be sufficient because of this changing information. So we thought one solution would perhaps be a digital signage solution, and this would be something like TV screens that have the ability to display average waiting times for getting your papers seen, be able to provide that multilingual element as well through audio, and perhaps also it's not just about providing information. Sometimes when you have adolescent males in an area they're bored, sometimes this can lead to arguments and things. To actually maybe provide entertainment or infotainment on these screens could actually make this journey and this transit a little bit easier. This could be perhaps an out-of-the-box product that may work in a context like Macedonia, but also be able to be used elsewhere. As Rebecca was saying, that we aim to try and build these and then scale them to other contexts outside of this one. So back over to Katie. Thank you.
Thanks. So they were two pretty discrete challenges that we identified, and we just really wanted to say, well, thank you very much for everyone. I know that you've been working on your own challenges and your own tech solutions, but if anyone is ready for this challenge, these two specific challenges, then if you could come and maybe speak to myself and John during today, that would be great. I think we have a couple of minutes just for questions, if there are any questions.
Shelley.
I have the same question for you that I had before. When you do these private partnerships or partnerships with private companies, do you expect the private companies to finance all of the innovation that they give you, or do you actually provide any funding for the solutions that they offer?
So just to repeat the question for those who didn't hear, do you expect private companies to come up with the funding? Can you fund it? Where's the money going to come from to fund a solution like this?
It depends. So we, as you know, the UN has a very structured model for partnerships, and so sometimes it depends if the company is part of like a formal partnership, so that goes through one channel, or maybe it's just like a co-financing part, or some of them are actually funded by UNHCR. It depends on the model of the partnership itself. So we have worked with different models, and we try to avoid as much as we can bureaucracy. And our lead and our colleagues are working a lot to just make various this building of these partnerships. But that will depend on the type of partnership that are putting together.
Yeah, just to mention on this point as well, I mean, the primary aim with the way that we sort of design these and fund these is around sustainability. So you may have noticed in the slideshow that Rebecca put up the housing unit that was developed in partnership with the IKEA Foundation. The way that worked with some initial funding from sort of UNHCR and the IKEA Foundation, eventually that actually spun out to its own sort of organisation that is then able to sort of design these and develop them because they then provide them to other agencies as well as UNHCR and have that as a sort of sustainable model, so they're actually an enterprise rather than just a non-profit.
And I think finally on that point, one of the key focuses of UNHCR Innovation is sometimes it might just be us brokering a partnership between two different entities, and that might be where the sustainability is, so making those connections through the access that we have to communities and agencies that we're already working with.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask a slightly sort of morally tricky question. The assumption certainly in your presentation was that it is, as it were, always legitimate to aid people in moving on. And by moving on, I presume they're trying to get to Germany or Sweden or wherever. Particularly in the post-Paris context, what was about the issue of screening, perhaps? I mean, perhaps there are some people who it would be better if they weren't moved on. It would actually be better if they returned back, or at least held where they were. I'm just wondering how you face up to that, which is after all an incredibly difficult moral dilemma.
We are, because we work for UNHCR Innovation, we are guided by the principles of humanitarianism. So obviously they're the four key principles: independence, neutrality, impartiality. I'm obviously going to forget the last one. But also UNHCR is a protection agency. We're bound by our mandate. So we cannot, as UNHCR, facilitate onward movement. We have to protect people and afford them of their dignities, their rights, their responsibilities and their duties on entry into a country, for example. So it would be very difficult and challenging for us to be in Greece and say this is exactly how you would get to Germany, because that's not our position and that's definitely not our mandate. We can afford protection to people when they arrive, how to keep yourself warm, how to keep yourself safe, don't walk on the railway tracks, that kind of information, because that's really our position and we're bound by that mandate.
This is a very good point, and one I think we ought to emphasise is that people have come to TechFugees saying, we're going to give you an app that gives you lots of routes. You know, there's a whole load of legal problems to do with this, and this is why we've come up with a workshop to do with, you know, the legalities of this. We only have really one more. We can do two very quick ones. Okay, let's do very quick questions.
We're going to be here for discussing formally around.
Sorry, very quick question. Just what's the most effective piece of technology you've used in the field?
Yeah.
I mean, just to give you the top line questions, when people arrive on a site, the first thing they ask is, where can I charge my phone? And the second question is there Wi-Fi? Always. And with that, I would say the most useful technology is charging and connectivity, be it through VSAT or through 3G, 4G connection or other connectivity means.
Can I just add one? But in some places where there's none, I'm thinking Africa context, for example, which is not particular to the European crisis, it's the people. The most important people like technology is the staff, but it's there where the volunteers are giving, providing information. So it's not only about technology like Oceanside, it's also about people.
I'm going to be, my co-organiser is going to hate me, but I'm going to squeeze one more in.
It was just a very quick point connecting to just what you're saying, in that something we all need to sort of really think about is our levels of courage, because this room's really full today, it needs to be twice as full in a year's time. Increasingly we're going to find courage really important. One of the really brave things I saw just after the Paris attacks, which were horrific, was the statement from the UNHCR from the border in Serbia about why it's even more important now than ever we're focusing on this humanitarian crisis. So I'd urge everyone to go to the UNHCR website and read that great statement your High Commissioner put out.
Thank you.
Fair comment. Right, thank you very much, UNHCR. Now, to bring us back on home, we're now going to hear from Hassan. If you want to come up, sir. Hassan is an asylum seeker that made to the UK this September. He's a Syrian refugee. He's 27 years old. And we're just going to, with technology, people are about user-centered design. Here's a user. So let's hear from him and what his experience was.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you got a microphone.
Yeah, I got it. I'm sorry I was late. I had to come from Hitchin, but I got lost. So that's that's why I lasted 3 months throughout Europe to get here. I started my journey in July 1st, and after 87 days I got here. And thank you so much for the UN for all the great work you're doing right now. Unfortunately, when we did the journey, we didn't receive any help, to be honest, except by individual initiatives, by people who would drive out with their vans to Cali and give us things to do, things to take, and use. Now, I have two very important points to mention here. I've, ever since I met Tara, she told me about all those great apps being built right now to help refugees here.
Just stand there. Yeah, so the light.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hi. So I heard about people are coming up with apps, and people are trying as much as they can to help the journey, to help the people who are like us and me doing the journey to make it easier for them. However, that's really needed. That's like a must, because first of all, I really struggled to find an app which is gonna take me throughout Europe without internet connection. And I got an app called Maps.me, but it would never work, especially if you're in the back of a van or you're under a lorry or if you're on a boat. The other struggle is when there is an app or when there's a solution to help out refugees, we don't know about it. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Snapchat, but I just don't know about them. It's because that Syrians, I'm going to talk about Syrians, I'm going to talk about other nationalities because I'm Syrian myself and I know what we do. Before I did the journey myself, I went to Facebook and I checked for groups of people who are doing the journey, and I found this huge group. It has over 150,000 Syrians. They are going to do the journey. And they advise each other on things, they tell each other what to do, they draw maps, very old school. There were people who were drawing maps on papers and taking pictures of them and posting on that group. But they were really helpful. It's because there was an audience, there was over 150,000 people to take that information and use it when they are going to do the journey. That's one thing. So whatever you create or whatever you come up with, try to find someone who's gonna approach. Of course, it's the power of social media. So we need to get the word out. We need to people know that there's this app which is very helpful. There's this thing which is gonna really help you on the way. Another thing I wanted to say, I wanted to briefly talk about my experience because it's a long and a dangerous one. I started my journey in July 1st. After 10 days in Izmir in Turkey, we were on a boat I was with 62 people in a 9-meter dinghy, and we were crossing from Turkey to Lesbos, from Izmir to Lesbos. Our boat sank, we were mid-water. And guess how I got the Turkish Coast Guards? Via WhatsApp. I was on WhatsApp, and I was I asked one of our friends, she lives in the States, and I was just stay with me. If I tell you to call to call for help, you do it yourself. So as we were in water, I still remember, and that's filmed, by the way. It's going to be a documentary soon on the BBC. My hands are over water. I'm texting my friends, just send SOS. And I had to do it this way. I wish there was an app which could automatically send. And if there's one, I wish I knew about it, to be honest. The second time we were on a boat. So that time we were rescued by the Turkish Coast Guards. Luckily no one died. Luckily no one sank. The second time we were on a boat, we were attacked by the Greek Special Forces. And this is happening right now, by the way. It's all over the internet. The article is called "The Three Masked Men," because humongous guys on an army boat attacking refugees mid-water. We were left mid-water for 8 hours until we had to swim ourselves to Lesbos, putting the women and the children on the boat and pushing them. We got to Lesbos. The treatment is not so cool. Right now, you've got people from England from here, because my friends who are doing the journey, they're telling me, as soon as they touch land, here's a jumper, here's a trousers, here's a coat, here's whatever you want, or medications. But back then, I didn't meet those people. Luckily, now they are there. And that's awesome of them, because my friends tell me, when we get there, we were treated like kings. Food, whatever you want, it's great of them. I want to thank everyone who's taking part of this job. We got to Lesbos, from there to Athens. We walked from Athens to the Macedonian borders. From there, we took the train, and as my brother and sister said here, it's like a terminal. We just keep on moving. We don't stop. But the treatment is not so cool. Back then, there was no major organization to help us. I only met the Red Cross near the Macedonian train station, and they handed us bottles of water. And we lost everything because we sank in the water when we were trying to get to Greece the first time. So we literally had nothing on us. I had my shorts and my T-shirt, and that's it. I had no one to give me like a jumper or something. It was cold at night. So we went on into Serbia, Hungary, Vienna, vans and smugglers, and sadly, half the money goes to the bad people. Sadly, the money goes into the wrong bottles, into the wrong pockets. Sorry, because I wish that money could be dedicated to something else. I wish like they could take you from Turkey and then give you this money when you get somewhere as your benefits for the first year until you integrate and you can work and do whatever you can. But it's unfortunate that the money is going to the wrong pockets. I got to Germany and then I've always wanted to come here. Like my original destination is to come here. That's what I wanted to do. And I didn't know I was going to get stuck in Cali for 60 long days. 2 months in Cali were horrible. I don't know if you know about the jungle. I think you should know. We were all over the news because we would jump over the Eurostar every single night. It's unfortunate. It's bad. I watched people die under the train. I saw them myself. We would hide into lorries. It was really, 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 really hard. Really hard. Because I'm talking about walking 2 hours every single night to go to the Eurostar station, jump over 5 fences. I still have scars on my hands because of the wire fences. And then wait for the Eurostar to slow down and then jump on it. And you get caught. And trying every single night. And when I gave up on the Eurostar, it was the lorries. And the lorries, it's even worse because the smugglers take you to the Belgian border. They open the lorry for you. That's their job. That's what they get paid for. And they put you in there and then they lock on you. That's it. A lot of money for just this thing. And then that's like 2 a.m. The lorry starts moving at 9 a.m. And then at 9 a.m. until the port in Cali, that's like 3 hours. So 12 hours and then you get caught. And you try every single night. Until you're fortunate enough to make it. I'm glad I finally made it because 3 months is just a lot of time. We can talk forever about the refugee crisis, but we really need to find a solution. We need to channel everything we're doing now into action, and I know that you've been doing this for a long time, and thank you so much. But I just have one advice here, is that, as I said before, the Syrians or the refugees in general need to know about this, need to know about what's going on, need to know about any useful app which is going to make it better. I didn't know. I used Maps.me, that application, like very old school things. Like someone drew a map for me on the Serbian border being like, listen, this is how you cross. Thank you, bro. That's it. I wish there was a better way to do it. And I want it to be as brief as possible because I don't want to talk forever. And I just wanted to say one thing. Sorry, yeah.
A lot of time. You have time. You have 10 minutes.
Oh, awesome. I know a lot of people are skeptical about refugees, especially after the Paris attacks. But to be honest, that's what we fled from. This is what brought us here. I would never have left Syria if Syria was still safe. It was beautiful. And a lot of people don't, of course you do, but a lot of people, like when I give talks other places, they're like, oh, how come you have smartphones and you're refugees? Well, we have smartphones, we have nice clothes, I had a car, because we didn't flee because we're poor, man. We fled because our country is not cool anymore. Every single nation is bombing it. And I hope England doesn't get involved now. We were protesting yesterday not for the English to be involved in bombing Syria. And you can, of course, if I were British, I would be worried. I'd be like, what if there are some couple of bad guys who are coming with the refugees? I don't want to talk about that because I'm not an expert in terrorism and whatever. But I think the bad people, which are still whatever they are right now, and if they try to get here, I don't think they can just fly under the radar. Those people are known. Those people are, and there are Syrians right now. By the way, they come up with great ways on Facebook. They made this page of every single guy or a person who was fighting either with the regime or fighting either with ISIS, and they made it to Europe. They find out where they live. Most of them are in Germany, and they send those pictures and the address to the government so they can go and capture them. So we, as much as so many people are concerned about that, we're also concerned about that. We're worried about that because We don't want our reputations to be ruined. We're nice people, just like all of you. Thank you so much.
If anyone has any questions.
Hi, my name is Paula and I'm from the startup boat. We work on Lesbos and we develop sort of structures where you can implement digital tools. So there's nothing that we create, but it's more, for example, we launched a carpooling thing for volunteers now so that they can get from A to B faster.
Yeah.
And the thing is that we want to have teams between a local, for example, and a person who came, because we think that one person should be the more sort of stable guy
Yeah.
who operates from here, and the other one has to bring the message across.
Yeah.
Right? Now, what I've seen from a mentalities point of view, it's super difficult to get people to actually engage. And I would like to ask you, how can we get to people who would like to join the teams and also co-create?
To join your teams here and on Lesbos, right?
Right, because I think that many people don't. I think that many people don't feel as though they're allowed to join also forces and maybe work on solutions.
Oh. I think a lot of people, if you could reach Phil, Solidarity with Calais Action from the UK, this is a huge, great Facebook group, and everyone is willing to help with any way possible.
Do you know the address of that?
It's on.
The address of the Facebook group?
It's called Solidarity with Calais Action from the UK. Yeah, so.
We'll go this way. Quickly, sorry, just quickly. We are actually live streaming. I apologise. It turns out we do actually have a live stream. So the TechFugees Twitter account and TechFugees has the URL on YouTube. So we are live streaming. You can tweet that out to your friends who want to see what's going on. And also, when you're asking a question, it'd be fantastic if you could just introduce yourself. If you're from an organisation like the Red Cross or something, just say that. That's all you need to do is then say your question. Okay, go.
Hi, my name is Daniela Stefowska and I'm with myrefuge.world. We're developing a tech platform to connect refugees with other NGOs who can provide services to them. And in fact, the part we focus a lot on now is getting in touch with the refugees and making them aware that there is a lot of help out there.
Yeah.
And then bringing these refugees to the agencies that can help them. So we've been in touch already with a number of these Syrian groups and talked to them. So they've given us some interesting feedback. But what I wanted to ask you was, where were you in July when you decided to come here? Were you in Syria or were you in
I left
Turkey
Syria in
or-
2012, and I sought refuge in Arab countries before I did the journey. And sadly, they're not really cool, especially like our brothers, the Arabs. They always thought us that we're brothers, but it's just not good for us there. I mean, I haven't been very supportive, to be honest. I tried Lebanon, I tried Egypt, I went to the UAE, but I ended up leaving because I wasn't legal to stay.
So you weren't allowed to stay
No.
even as a refugee?
They don't. I was born and raised in Saudi, and I'm not allowed to be granted refugee status in Saudi.
Because you're not Syrian.
I'm not. I am Syrian citizen, but the Arab countries they haven't opened their doors to refugees. Although it's a lot closer to us to get to the Arab countries than Europe.
Question here.
My name is Richard Dent from University of Cambridge. I'm really interested to hear your point about refugees using Facebook, WhatsApp. There are a lot of, nearly 50 apps for refugees, but if, like you say, they don't know about them, how can they use them? So I don't know if anyone from Facebook or WhatsApp's here, or Twitter, but they are working on refugee issues. Is it something that you and a coalition of Syrian NGOs can do to lobby them to do more, to network people more?
You mean Facebook and WhatsApp? I think, well, already people, as I told you, Facebook and WhatsApp, they're very user-friendly, and we knew about them. We didn't know about other apps and other initiatives, but I strongly believe, remember what happened after Paris attack when people post, I'm safe, or I'm not safe? Something similar should be done for refugees. Yeah, either on WhatsApp. So we use WhatsApp, Facebook, and Skype. That's what we were using. So of course there should be something. There should, especially now with this crisis, it's the second Holocaust. What's happening right now? So there should be a modification or a special feature for refugees. Yeah.
There's one over here.
Hello, my name is Juan. I'm from Intercountry. We're working on actually digitizing the registration process for refugees, so you don't have to go on a boat.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice if you have some sort of documentation, so
Yeah.
you can actually just legally fly somewhere
Yeah.
instead of hanging out at different. I come from a refugee background myself, etc. So, well worth documentation.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about that? Could you talk a little bit about that? Where you got registered, what kind of documentation you needed, and finally your asylum process, and how long that took?
Here,
Your entire process.
when I got here.
Even before you got here, I mean, your.
Well, the only legal thing I did was when I got here, I applied for asylum. But the last time I was in the system, I was in Turkey.
When you were in Turkey, were you legally in Turkey?
I was legally in Turkey, but I left Turkey illegally to Greece on a dinghy, and no more stamps. I went through like 10 countries without any stamp.
No, you didn't get registered with the EU.
No, nothing.
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 He's a refugee.
You still need to get registered to have a clear list to go.
You register. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. You register in Lesbos on the island, because if you don't register, you're not allowed to take the ferry to Athens.
So
we had to register there. Yeah.
So you
that was the last time I was registered. Sorry, I didn't mention that.
Okay, Roger, very quickly follow on from that. Quick one.
So you had your passport.
I lost it in the
You lost
sea.
it in the sea.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been doing this without a passport.
Pardon?
You've been doing this without a passport.
I've been without a passport. Yeah.
Yeah, identity papers, big issue for the refugee crisis.
Yeah.
Some tech people have been working on all sorts of ideas around
We do it the old school
Bitcoin.
way. We all Syrians, they wrap their passports and their money with like plastic bags, and then when you're in the water, that's gonna get lost anyway.
Thank you for your story. I think it's
You're welcome.
timeless. It's really, I'm really grateful that you share with us, and I think we still have lots of humor despite the circumstances. And I think it's a great storytelling. I want to ask about the next step of your journey and what can you do, or what is the things you would like to see happen once you reach your destination?
Thank you so much. Thank you for mentioning this, because I forgot to talk about it. A lot of people are tempted to help they actually do help the people on the way, but once they get there, now what? I mean, a lot of people end up here. I'm going to give the UK as an example, and then what? There have been some very good initiatives I've heard, because once you get here, you stay in a hostel for a month, and then they give you a temporary residence for a month too, until you get your leave to remain, and then you have 20 days to evacuate and just figure it out on your own. So, and some people made like an Airbnb thing, which is it's called a room for refugee, where British families post like a picture of their room, and they're like, we would have a refugee here. And actually, one of my friends, he just got a room here in London yesterday, and he was really happy about it. That's one thing. The second thing, I was telling my friend Tara that a lot of Syrians here, not all of us can speak English, so a lot of them struggle with finding a place so they can learn English. They end up going to the church once a week, but that's not enough, especially that you have a lot of time until you get your leave to remain. You have 3 months. You can basically study the whole language in 3 months if you are good enough. So language, accommodation, and integrate. Another initiative was someone sent it to me on Facebook. Was they said a lot of people from London here in London, they said that they would want to invite a refugee for dinner, and that's gonna really help them integrate, gonna help them mingle with locals here, so they can know and learn more about their culture.
There's some been brilliant online initiatives around that idea in Berlin and places in Germany. Okay, we're going to have to really start stopping the questions because we've got to move on.
Thank you very much. I'm a journalist, but I'm also a private person. I went on the highway, stopped, and got 6 Afghan refugees out of the bushes. They just had crawled out of lorries, didn't know where they were. What should I do? I was a normal mother, I didn't know what to do. So what did I do? I called the police and I said, imagine I find 6 refugees, what should I do? And I said, well, where are they? I said, I'm not going to tell you. And then they said, okay, we give you the telephone number of the Red Cross. I called Red Cross. The Red Cross said, nothing of our business, we have nothing to do with this. Okay, so I was standing there, and then they said, why don't you call the refugee telephone number? I did this, half an hour, no answer. And that is the reality. What should people know? How can you connect all the tech apps help with police, where somebody like me would call, with the refugee telephone numbers, that these people are helped? You know what I did? I took their mobile phones and they asked me to call the traffickers, and I did. And I explained the traffickers where they are. And that's it. And that is exactly the wrong thing.
Definitely, yeah. Well, as I told you, sadly, I mean, the money's going into the wrong pockets, and then eventually you're gonna have to trust I trusted the Serbian mafia to smuggle me through Hungary. It was like this big, humongous guy called Marko, being like, bro, trust me, I got you. And I was like, okay, he got me, I'm gonna have to go with
there's literally, what's your point? Say it in one sentence.
Oh, just my point is how I've been working with saving people on boats. I'm from Syria myself. Thank you so much for the interview. My question is, what is the best to do to avoid smugglers and the lies that they tell people? Thank you so much for the...
Oh yeah, well that's a big issue.
Yeah.
Sorry, quickly. They tell you, well, it's 40 people on the boat, but you go there and under gunpoint, you're gonna have to go on the boat, and when we were 62 people on that boat. How we can stop that? Luckily, yesterday I think the EU agreed with Turkey so there was an agreement yesterday, and they're gonna stop this. They're gonna stop this whole rubber boat.
So
rubbish.
There's one question here. What did you do before in Syria?
I was an English teacher.
What?
English teacher.
English teacher. Right, thank you very much, Simone. That's fantastic. Are you around all day?
I'm staying.
You're staying all day? Stay all day. Please stay. I'm sure lots of people want to talk to you about your experience. Right, next up, we're going to have asylum seekers on the move, the reasons their journey and the UK welcome. So first off is Nando. Nando Sigona, who's a researcher on the refugee crisis at the University of Birmingham. We'll hear from him. Everyone's got a seat? Yeah, okay. If you've got a spare seat next to you and somebody comes in, please take your coat off and just signal so we can get everyone set down. Okay, go for it.
Okay, thank you for the invitation. I was asked to give you a brief outline of what's going on in the refugee crisis in the last 6 months, 12 months, how it's changed. So what I'm going to do is just to show some of the data that come from the UNHCR website that provides the most updated data on arrivals in both from the center route through the Mediterranean, so Libya to Italy, and then the Turkey to Greece one. And I could have chosen other numbers provider or statistic provider, but I'll get back to on this issue later. Because who provides the numbers has also got a lot of power in this situation of crisis, and it's also contributed to create the sense of emergency we are experiencing at the moment. So we must be very careful about the numbers. So the key issues here I want to point out is two things for now. The crisis has evolved very quickly, very rapidly, both in terms of numbers, if you just compare in the last 12 months, but also in terms of routes, and also in terms of the country of origins of the people that come. So I guess these are all things that have implication in terms of thinking about what are the needs, which I guess is the starting point of the kind of work you're trying to do. Obviously, if you design an app that serves Syrians and you want to implement it in Italy, then you will find out that basically there are no longer Syrians in Italy, so it's not very useful. And you got instead many more nationalities. There is a very significant element of diversity in terms of who comes on the boats, according to which routes they're taking. So it's quite important to be aware of this. So I put 3 arrows here for this slide for you. One is about, thing to bear in mind, the demographic profile. So when you're thinking about who are you helping or you are going to provide for, you need to think about the profile of the people that are coming. What is interesting here, we'll go back to this later, is that if you look at the Turkish Greek routes, you got more women and more children. If you look at the central Mediterranean routes, the Libya to Italy one, you got a much more young male kind of profile there, which is interesting. The other element is how quickly this has changed. So this is helping you to compare arrival by sea between 2014 and 2015. And basically what you can see here is the blue one is 2015. So it's very massive change, rapid change. How do I address the rapid change is a key challenge there. And the final element to bear in mind is here on top, and is basically the concentration. Basically, if you only have limited resources and you want to address what are the groups that may have more needs, and you don't know how to address the old worlds of refugees. If you look here, it's quite interesting. You've got a very large majority of Syrians and Afghani, and then all the smaller groups, so that you can also target your initiative to specific needs there. One element which is as important here, and in a way has got also implication in terms of the impact of a lot of the intervention we have seen from humanitarian sectors, from various actors, is the point about the link between the number of arrivals and the people that died or went missing this year. This is a very important difference between last year and this year. As you can see, the number at the spiral between 2014 and 2015, we went from about 200,000 to over 800,000. However, the number of people that at sea is actually stayed the same. So you can sort of say that the mortality and the dangerousness of the journey has radically decreased. This is very important. I mean, that obviously every people that died at sea is important. It's not that the issue. The issue is that there's something has happened here that has allowed the people not to die. And this is when you really think about what it is. One of the key issues, one of the key interventions has been the decision of replicate the Italian Operation Mare Nostrum at the European level. So since April 2015, there's been a scaling up of the European intervention in the Mediterranean. The other element here is that the Turkish to Greek route is much safer than the middle Mediterranean one. The journey is shorter. We have seen, the story of the three-masked men, as was mentioned before by some, so there has been people that are trying to attack the boat. But essentially, from the point of view of the maritime, the journey is shorter, it's quicker, cheaper as well. So I think it's important. And there's also another intervention there. There's been a network of NGOs. I think it was led by German NGOs that was basically doing a very good work of circulating phone numbers for people that were going on the boat to call on to get the Italian Ministry of Transport to intervene and identify the boats very quickly when the journey started. So rather than wait, the people were doing a long journey. There was very early on in the journey that people will be located in the sea, and there was a larger network of public and private actors in the sea that have been rescuing people. I mean, there were 3 boats from MSF, for example. There was MOAS, and then there was obviously the various navies from the European member states. The Italian Navy has, despite the Europeanization of the crisis, the Italian Navy is by far one that has done more rescues in the Mediterranean. If we look at, now I want to just briefly look at Greece and Italy in the sense of, to give you a sense of how different are these routes and maybe think about what are the different needs there. So as I said before, the demographic is different. You've got more women and more children crossing through from Turkey to Izmir. These are the main area of transit there. What you see here is that between the largest change of numbers that I mentioned at the beginning is mainly here. It's mainly on the Greek routes. You can see like the peaking between October, which is actually quite unusual for a sea journey. Normally you would expect it more in the summer season rather than in autumn. But this is partly due to the fact I mentioned before that the journey is shorter and relatively easy weather-wise as well. And the other element to bear in mind is here on top, and is the number of nationality. The people crossing from Turkey to journey is actually a much smaller range of country of origin. And it's mostly, you could say basically that all the people that cross there are within the 10 top nationalities. So there's basically 10 nations that cross with a very large chunk of Syrians and Afghani and Iraqi, and then Pakistani and so on. If we move to Italy instead, you can see the interesting thing here is that despite the disappearance of Syrians from the Mediterranean route, so basically between 2014 and 2015 there are no longer Syrians crossing from Libya, and this is a very big change. However, the overall number of people that have done the journey is more or less the same, which is interesting. It makes you think about, is it an issue of the capacity of the route? Is it basically how many places were available on the boats? And who has replaced the Syrians, which is also quite interesting. You got, instead of the 100% we saw before with Greece, here we got that the top 10 nationalities only make the 78% of the people that cross. And I just came back on Saturday from research I'm doing in Italy about the reception system and the informal reception system. It's really interesting to see that the variety of people that you can meet in the formal system and the informal system. So you got a lot of representation of West Africans within Italy that you don't see on the other routes. And it's also, it raises issues different. For example, you got issues of human trafficking. You got a very large number of unaccompanied minors from Egypt that you don't see anywhere else in Europe that also have their own issues. Okay. And also what is interesting that is that not many people come from areas where there are open and ongoing war conflicts. So that basically you got different kind of issues in terms of asylum. The last two issues I want to show, is about the needs and we think about. As was pointed out by Sam, obviously there is an issue of the journey, and we've seen that there is a lot going on there. What happened next is something that's much less discussed for a number of political reasons, but it's really important to think about. And there are issues here. This is how different is the acceptance rates of different nationality in different European countries. Just quick, this element here is the people that get rejected. So people that apply for asylum and get a rejection. What happened to them? You're hearing about quick return policies and things like that, but research shows that a very large number of people who receive a rejection don't really leave the country. So if you look at the US, you've got 12 million undocumented migrants and 2 million, I think it was about over 1 million people that got deported this year. So it was the peak of the number of deportation, but even then, you've still got 11 million people that are there. So you need to think about how to cater for those who stay. Okay. I'll close here. I had another one, but yes. Thank you.
Fantastic. Time for one question, then we've got another speaker. Packing it in today, and we've got one day.
So you touched the topic of rejections. This topic is connected to another big topic. It's the difference between asylum seekers and economic migrants. This difference, the threshold of the difference is very, very, very thin. Imagine the fact that, for instance, Eritrean migrants are not considered as asylum seekers, while they are in a war, they are under a dictatorship, they are in very similar situations to people who are considered asylum seekers. So, here in TechFugees, are we thinking about solutions for economic migrants? Because those solutions are very difficult comparing to solutions for asylum seekers, legally speaking.
Okay, talking about the Eritreans are the second nationality for success rates in the asylum cases. So, in a sense, the Eritreans over 70% got accepted.
Not in England.
Well, in England, you don't have the people coming through the sea, so they got different kind of stories. And the graph before was showing the different success rate. But in Italy, there are many other nationalities that you got that issue there. I don't know if as refugees you have to address them, but it's clear that there is a population that has got needs, and they are different from the others. Obviously, the people that manage to go through the asylum process, they got some kind of protection. The one that gets refused or rejected may have other needs, one of which is finding resources to appeal the decision. As we know, a lot of decisions get overturned in appeal, but as legal aid has been cut, some people struggle to get to that point. So in a sense, yeah.
There's a very, very short question.
Just a clarification. So to illustrate the fact that asylum seekers and refugees, basically their future is obviously hugely determined by what the government does or does not do for them or to them. Eritrean refugees were getting 80% yes in the UK. Government didn't like it, so they rewrote the guidance. Now they're getting 35% yes. So 2/3 of Eritreans are being refused, whereas 6 months ago, 4 out of 5 was said yes. So it just illustrates the fact that unless we influence that environment, you're going to have a lot of people who are refused. So technology can't solve that problem. It's a political issue.
Can I just add something about this? One of the problems with this data we saw is that basically they are auto-sync. So you got the number of arrival people that apply for asylum, and then you got the success rate. They often refer to cohort the people that came before. And the other issue is that at the moment, for example, the relocation program that the EU is sort of trying to implement all affect people that have got a success rate over 70%. If the number go down very lightly, I mean, the UK is not really touched by it because anyway, they don't relocate. Anyway, they are even beyond that. But it is really important also to monitor this kind of thing.
This is why Edward, stand up. This is why Edward Superior is working on a project to basically get MPs working about how to respond better and faster in a digital government environment, right? So don't, well, maybe we'll give you a bit of airtime later to see about that. Okay, now we're going to move. Thank you very much, sir. Yes, Alex. Alex Fraser is Head of Refugee Support and International Family Tracing with the Red Cross, British Red Cross. We'll just mic him up. And obviously, most of these people are around today, so we can chat to them later. Off you go, sir.
I think I'm mic'd up. Can you hear me all right? Yeah, okay. There's some kind of rabbit vision in this room. Okay, I'll try and get through this kind of fairly rapidly. I think I'll press this clicker. Yeah, so I'm from the Red Cross. It's always interesting, particularly over the last sort of 6 months, coming to events not quite like this, but similar to this, how the Red Cross is mentioned. And increasingly, we're having to respond to the crisis we see, but also to how other organisations, individuals, are responding to make sure we're working sort of more collaboratively on what is a very challenging situation, has been for some time, and will increasingly be so in the months and probably, let's face it, years ahead. I think mention of policy, very important. Shame there isn't an instance of tech solution for that. But one of the things which I will go on to talk about in relation to refugee family reunion is the lack of safe legal routes for protection. And that's one of the reasons why so many people are having to take these horrendous, dangerous journeys. If we've got a magical tech solution for that, it'd be great to hear it. So today I'm going to be focusing on restoring family links, which is part of what the Red Cross movement does, British Red Cross here in the UK and across migratory trails across the world. So most of you probably heard of the Red Cross, right? I guess. But people don't often quite know exactly what we do. We do a range of things. In a nutshell, we respond to support people in crisis, whoever they are, wherever they are. That's challenging because there is crisis almost everywhere, in every country, across this world of ours. And obviously some countries, the environment we're working in is very challenging. So when we talk about technology, obviously some parts of the world, there is no infrastructure, there is no technology. And sort of taking that into account in terms of some of the solutions is where we have to sort of think about how can we not only come up with sort of tech things that can help, but if there's no infrastructure, how does that pan out? So we help people in crisis. In terms of the refugee crisis, well, again, in simple terms, we help people to find protection, restore their family links, and help them to rebuild their lives, which is, again, a very challenging situation people find at the end of what is a very complicated first part of a journey, wherever they end up rebuilding their lives. But restoring family links is something I wanted to focus on today, rather than talking about the more sort of practical sort of health, shelter support that we're doing across migratory trails in Europe and further afield, and obviously in countries of origin. So when we talk about restoring family links, this kind of comes into two parts. One part's called international family tracing. Have you heard of that at all? No? Not probably, no, okay. International family tracing, I'll go into a bit more detail about that. The other part is our work around refugee family reunion. Have you heard of refugee family reunion? Okay, that is one of two actual sort of safe legal routes that people can use to find protection in this current crisis. Sort of move quite rapidly through this. So international family tracing, as you can see, a bit of a kind of a summary here. I'm guessing these presentations will be sent out to folk afterwards, so I won't kind of dwell too long on these slides. But obviously people become separated as a result of conflict, as a result of complex situations, disasters, migration. And one of the things that people find as kind of the main fear, I suppose, is becoming separated from those people that mean the most of their families. And the challenge is, how do we help people to reconnect with those family members? Because right now, today, there will be people starting off on dangerous journeys, there will be people becoming displaced as a result of these terrible situations going on around the world. Now, some people will know where their family members are, others won't. And increasingly so, after 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week, 1 year, 10 years, it becomes even more complicated to bring those people back together. But increasingly we're finding people are becoming displaced whilst they're on their journeys, at borders. An unintended consequence of people getting moved on and moving so rapidly as we've heard described today. And our services are free, neutral and impartial. Again, there's a quick slide there which breaks down the sort of 4 main parts of international family tracing. We have the tracing itself, which is where we try and bring people back together or re-establish contact for those who have become displaced as a result of conflict, natural disaster, migration. We also can deliver messages for our network of 187 national societies that span the globe, and I'll show you an example of how it looks in a minute. Again, quite complicated, although some countries, like UK, we have a good technology infrastructure. Other countries, they're still using pieces of paper, and word of mouth. So take that into account when we think about how we reconnect families and how technology could play a part in that. We also provide evidence of people who are detained, this great word, attestation of detention, which is a part of how we enable people through the asylum process. And also, we can report on where people have become lost and report on their well-being. So that's a very quick sort of gallop through what our IFT work is. And in the UK, we provide our international family tracing in 44 locations. We opened about 1,000 cases last year. We're exceeding that this year already. Interestingly, 6% of our cases still linked to the Second World War, which shows you how complex and how long these tracing cases go on for. I know we've been rushed through this, and we've started traces in 79 countries across the world. There's a quick chart there, and when you look at this in slower time, you'll see that's kind of how it works. We send a message out through this network of national societies. They use volunteers on the ground to try and reconnect, and we use literally drawings of information about where people think their relatives may be, and often it's about describing a street or a place, and again through networks of volunteers, but increasingly perhaps using technology we can make that a more rapid process. And in the last year we've started something that's called Trace the Face. You go to tracetheface.org, which is using technology. So at the border points, and I saw in one of the pictures earlier on, there was a Restoring Family Links team, and they'll be using iPads, but also printed versions of this, where people can register photos to try and trace their family members. Refugee Family Reunion, one of the existing safe legal routes. You'll see there, it's something when people are granted sanctuary in the UK, they have an internationally recognised right to be reunited with their family. It's a very complex process and needs to become more straightforward. But there's one particular solution I think that could be found with technology. I'm going to show you a very, very quick film now, which gives you a feeling and a bit of a more sense of what Refugee Family Reunion is all about. So, 1 minute left. How can technology provide ways for people to find protection and enable them to be reunited with their loved ones? So there's a couple of things I want you to think about. One is this: how do we, in those 187 countries, enable these contacts, these connections to happen more quickly, more rapidly using technology, particularly where there's no infrastructure? Second one, and this is a really big problem right now, Refugee Family Reunion, part of the process is people, sponsors, and members of families in very difficult parts of the world, once their, say, husband, the father of the family, has got status in the UK, they can go through the Refugee Family Reunion visa application process. It's complicated, but part of it involves another dangerous journey for a lot of people, where family members have to travel to a British embassy to fill out paperwork, to do biometric parts of the process. That often puts them in huge danger. It's very expensive, and I think there could be a solution using technology to avoid that process. So how could people remain in a safe place, or a more safe place, avoid those dangerous journeys to embassies, using technology to do what they would otherwise have to do in a British embassy? We've got examples of people who have been abducted, tortured, had horrific things happen to them as a result of having to take those journeys to those embassies as part of the family reunion process. I think there could be a solution with technology.
Great, thanks so much. Any questions? I'm going to have to get a big long broomstick to send this to Shelley.
I'm Shelley Taylor, and we've developed the refugee data, which you guys will hear about later this afternoon. But my question for you is the same one I had for the other NGOs. How will you finance innovations that are developed by people in this room? Do you have budgets, and can you act quickly to make those decisions if somebody presented you the technology you want?
Yeah. So I think, this last year in particular has actually like a bit of an innovation locomotive for us as an organisation. I think one of the big challenges for big NGOs is how do we become more agile? No doubt about that, So the question is, how do we fund innovation? So the ICRC, who are kind of, without going into detail, they are kind of the overseers of our Restoring Family Links work. So in Geneva, they now have an innovation team. And I think just like a lot of NGOs, they're looking for how can they get sponsorship, essentially, to help fund a lot of the innovation that they would want to see rolled out across the migratory trails in the country.
We don't really have a lot of time for questions, so we're going to squeeze one more speaker in for lunch. Before break, sorry. So thank you very much, Alex. Tim Finch. Where's Tim? Oh, Tim Finch, thank you so much. Tim Finch is coordinating the National Refugees Welcome Board, and hear from you now. And then we'll have. But thanks.
Okay. Can you hear me all right? Yeah. I'm the coordinator of this relatively new initiative called the National Refugees Welcome Board, which has been set up by a citizens organisation you may know called Citizens UK. And the idea of it was just to try and harness and mobilise some of the civic generosity which has really bubbled up in the last few months. I can talk a bit more about that to anybody who's interested during one of the breaks, but what I wanted to talk about today, rather like so many other people have done the same thing, it's such a great opportunity for those of us in this field to potentially find some solutions to problems that we think are important. And so what I wanted to do, like what other people have done, issue some challenges to you. They're a little bit random, these are partly just, there's so many things popping up in this field, and so these don't relate terribly well to each other, but I'll hope you bear with me nonetheless. The first challenge I think is there are opportunities for people to get to the UK as refugees without having to do the horrible journey that Hassan has had to do. And at the moment, sometimes people perhaps don't realise that they have a chance to come to the UK, so is there something to do about that? Then there's the question that relates to something that's already come up, which is, once you get here, that's in some sense just the beginning of the journey. There are an awful lot of organisations around, a plethora, who can help, but where that help is available, even those of us who work in the sector find it difficult to navigate our way around it, and it's even harder for us refugees and asylum seekers, so you could help with that. And the final one is, how could tech help relieve trauma? I mean, obviously a lot of refugees suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder or things like that. You perhaps wouldn't think that there were, if anything was person to person, you'd think it would be that. But I'm going to just at the end throw in something that suggests that maybe there are nifty tech solutions even to that. So starting with the obvious, you'll be very familiar with this. You can see up there the jungle, it's already been mentioned, and then refugee camps in the region. Now, in both these areas, there are potential options for people to come to the UK from them without having to potentially risk their lives through boat journeys or clinging to the bottom of trains or what have you. And the question is that people don't always know about them. I'm going to just refer to my notes a little bit on on one of them because it's rather specific. As we know, with the more than 800,000 people who are in Europe that Nando was highlighting there, our government has taken a very, very firm stance on not taking any of those refugees into the country. They're not going to be part of the relocation scheme that Europe is involved in. And whatever the rights or wrongs on that, I can tell you for an absolute, I bet my mortgage on this, they're not going to change their mind. Politically, they're not going to go there. So that might seem that all those people are locked out of Britain unless they have the Witten initiative that Hassan has shown. But there is one area which has come up. There's recently been some changes to something called the Dublin III Convention, which is about the sharing, effectively, of refugees around Europe. And under some recent changes, it does turn out that you can make a claim for asylum in Britain without being here, without actually physically residing in Britain, if you have family in the country. Now, recently, a group of lawyers went out to Calais and located quite a lot of people, more than 130 Syrians, 60 Eritreans, and a number of others, who they felt could take advantage of this and effectively make a claim for asylum in the UK without being in the UK because they had family here. But that involved lawyers and campaigners going directly and finding them. There will be others, not just in Calais but elsewhere in Europe, who might be able to make use of that. Is there some sort of tech way in which this information can be got to them and potentially for them to make a claim? It's come up again and again. Often these processes are very complicated. And then in the camps themselves, our government has said it'll take 20,000 Syrians on a resettlement program into this country in the next 5 years. Obviously, the UNHCR do a lot of the work, and the International Organisation of Migration as well, in identifying people and registering them to show that they are able to be resettled in this country. But I've heard, and others will have done as well, of instances where people still don't know that they could potentially benefit from resettlement. And again, I wonder whether there might be some tech solutions there. Now, turning to this country, as I say, in some ways, there's a wonderful tapestry of support for people who are claiming asylum or who are refugees in the UK. But among 1,000 flowers blooming, it can sometimes be complicated to find out where the support is appropriate. I put some images up there just to indicate it. Yesterday in Parliament, the City of Sanctuary movement was meeting. That's been going for some years. And I was at some event with them in Bristol recently, and they were saying they think they've got about 65 cities of sanctuary now, otherwise groups in towns and cities who are doing this sort of work, but it's growing all the time, even they can't keep up with it. There's a photograph up there of the training that Citizens UK did recently for what are called National Refugee Welcome Committee, a new initiative. That's growing all the time. Every time I go on a Facebook group for that, there's another group that's been added to it, something like 65 of them as well. Then you'll hear in a moment from Stephen Hale, who's the Chief Executive of Refugee Action, one of the big 2 refugee agencies in the UK. They've got 6 offices around the country and supporters all in other places as well. So even the big NGOs are on the ground in different places. And then I just showed here, The Guardian, in the midst of the refugee crisis, when it was at its height, tried to indicate to the public that who might want to help, this is how you might be able to help. With this sort of map. I suspect some of you look at that and might go, wow, that's incredibly low tech, we could do better than that. So it really would be useful if someone could come up with the definitive app that just said, you know, I'm here, this is what I need, or this is how I want to help, what's out there already, so that people can navigate their way around this, in some ways wonderful, but rather complex ecosystem of support for refugees. And then finally, this one that, well, this intrigued me, and I hope it'll intrigue you. This was one of those things that happens if you're in my sort of position, particularly at this moment, and Stephen's nodding. All sorts of people are coming to you saying, I'd like to help refugees, I've got something I think would work really well, and they often seek you out in a rather random way. In this instance, I was approached by someone called Professor Emily Holmes, who's a very, very distinguished clinical psychologist, based at this unit, which is at Cambridge. And she said, so it seems almost unbelievable, but she's been doing some research, initially with car accident victims, about how you can deal with post-traumatic stress disorder, and in particular how you can dampen down flashbacks. Obviously people in that situation are often prone to suddenly seeing the horrific image again, and it causes them a lot of trauma. And they found that in actual fact, playing this very simple computer game, Tetris, at certain points, you have to concentrate on that at the time. It actually helps in dampening down the flashback and relieving post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, I sort of checked this person out. She's really bona fide. Someone told me she's the best in her field. She really knows what she's doing. And so, this really does work. And she would like to apply it to refugees. And in particular, she was coming to me because she was thinking about the Syrian group. So there's a couple of things that came just out of that, which I think might be important. One of the things she was just saying is that they would like to be able to somehow track the post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms in real time. And so she was saying it might sound a little bit as though it's trivialising the problem, but she said it would be really good if they could develop a sort of Fitbit for post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms so that they could register them. And then they've got the game. They know that they don't need new games in order to help dampen down the symptoms of this, but they do want, there's a process by which getting people to play the game to help them with their symptoms will work, and they want help with that as well. So there's a real potential here, and as many people have done this already, I think for the people like you out there to link up with other very clever people in this field and find things that could really make a very significant difference to people's lives. Thanks very much.
Excellent, thank you so much. We'll just do a couple of quick questions.
Hi, so my name is Daisy. I'm working in a very visceral organisation. It's pretty much just me and my friends who are law students, or former law students, essentially to try and counter the issue that you raised in your second point, of just all the disparate, huge amount of information that's out there in relation to asylum processes and the Dublin regulations and the settlement programs and all of that that's really inaccessible, even to law students when they're doing their academic essays about it, but certainly, I think, to those fleeing for their lives. So all it is really just to isolate all of that in one hub. What we're trying to do is reach out to individuals like you, organizations who have pockets of information in relation to different things. For instance, what you've mentioned here is information that we're looking for. So I guess if you have any advice as to how sort of the individuals on this side of it who are already thinking about aggregating information, or already thinking about any of the solutions that you, or challenges you raised, how do we reach out to all the various different organizations that have started trying to collect information in relation to different things that are happening, and how do we get you guys on board to help us with that research? Because right now we're doing it all on our own.
Well, I wish I could offer a solution, because that in a sense that's one of the problems. Is in order to have the as it were my definitive ideal fantasy app where it's just what's out there, one app, you can find it all. You need to do some hard research first in order to get there. I mean, the organiser, I think there are a number of key players. I mean, people like Refugee Action and Refugee Council have got a good handle on this, and we're increasingly doing that. I wanted to ask you a challenge, one word: counter. I mean, although I think it would be good to get the information, corral the information into one place, so that people, who want to help refugees in this country, British people, long settled people, and also the asylum seekers and refugees themselves, find the support that's most appropriate to them. Personally, I think the messiness, if you like, and the glorious profusion is a strength. We don't want to sort of have some Stalinist monolithic system whereby no one's allowed to set up a new group in place X because there's a group already there. What we want, I think, is to just find ways in which people, because after all, if you do that, you stifle innovation, and people may do new things better than the people who've been doing it for years and perhaps not doing it terribly well. But you just want to make sure that they can talk to each other in a better way. So I haven't answered your question, but let's talk afterwards.
Talk to them and they can find each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my name is John. I've started a little organization of digital workers collaborating to help organizations like Refugees Welcome create solutions. I reached out to Jonas from Refugees Welcome in Berlin a while back in August, and he introduced me to a bunch of people in the UK setting up a similar org, with the original intention of having someone stay in our home, but since then I haven't really been able to get through the Refugees Welcome in the UK. What's the current status with getting refugees into homes and spare bedrooms?
Well, it was mentioned, wasn't it, that there is that the spare bedrooms offer really might be appropriate for people in Hassan and his friend's situation. So they've claimed asylum in the UK, and they've got this accommodation issue that they can't access it straight away. And in some ways, one of the things that might be necessary is a lot of people have been motivated to get involved in this issue because they want to support Syrian refugees. And they've assumed that the Syrian refugees will be coming through the government programme. Those people will be provided with housing from day one, although the government does need civic society assistance in locating some of that housing. So I think there's two questions. Is there a way in which we can do more to identify accommodation and then make sure that local authorities and indeed the Home Office know that this is available? That's one thing. The other thing is are some of the people who, in that outpouring of sentiment in the late summer, early autumn, you said, can I have a Syrian staying in my house? Is it possible to say to them, well, no, but there might be someone from another nationality, perhaps not having got asylum yet, or even being refused asylum? Are you prepared to do that as opposed to this? So there's an issue to be done there, but again, we can talk about it.
Final question.
It's just a very quick offer of assistance. I'm Ben from the Sunlight Task Force, and so we're about 1,600 volunteers. We usually work immediately after natural disasters to do some of the stuff we've been talking about, trying to work out what's going on and make it available and tolerable. So we can talk afterwards.
Perfect.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, sir. What we're going to do now is we're going to have we're cutting our coffee break because we're obviously packing day. 15-minute coffee break. When you come back, file in at this end and don't leave seats next to you. Don't put your coat down or put your coat outside. There's places to hang your coat so we can get everybody seated. Thank you. 15 minutes.
Oh, hello, Brian. How are you? Good to see you. Thanks for the wait. Not at all. Nice to see you. Yeah. How are you getting on? Right? You get that? Good for now. Incredible. Oh, sorry. No, it's alright. Just so you know, I'm sorry. Just a moment.